Thanks for watching this portion of Garage Logic today on our YouTube channel, and hit the subscribe button if you wouldn't mind. And also thanks to our friends at Everest Men's Health for sponsoring this. Go to everestmenshealth.com today to see if they can help you with better energy and better health. And catch the Garage Logic podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Cook County, Chicago, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox called statements made by Mayor Lori Lightfoot about the handling of a deadly shooting case inappropriate and wrong. Well, that's what inappropriate used to mean, Kim. Inappropriate and wrong. This is an example of the progressives in Chicago beginning to just gather around themselves in a circular firing squad. Fox said that as a prosecutor, she doesn't try cases in the media. That's because as prosecutors, we recognize that our words can be used, whether by defense counsels or jurors, in making a determination in the believability of our evidence, Fox said. The announcement came amid criticism of Fox's office after the decision by prosecutors to reject charges in a deadly gang-related shooting in the Austin neighborhood last week. Lightfoot spoke Monday and called on Fox to reverse her office's decision on the case. If they do not feel like the criminal justice system is going to hold them accountable, we're going to see a level of brazenness that will send the city into chaos, and we cannot let that happen, the mayor said.
Send the city into chaos.
It's already happened, Lori. Fox said there was not enough evidence to support felony charges, and the police said the people arrested refused to tell them anything. But Lightfoot, herself a former prosecutor, believes there's evidence to make a case. I think there's evidence there. We've got videotape. We have a marked squad of uniformed officers who were on the scene observing it. At a bare minimum, the individuals who initiated the firefight must be prosecuted. Speaking on Tuesday, Fox defended the decision by her office after the mayor's comments and said some of her statements were not correct. It was inappropriate, Fox said. It was wrong. Well, it's either one, Fox. Pick a word. Use the word wrong. As a prosecutor who understands the oath and as a former prosecutor discussing the facts of this case in the press without benefit of all the evidence does a disservice to the communities who have been impacted by this violence. Our job is not simply to make an arrest, but also to get a conviction. In an effort to get a conviction, we must make sure that the evidence is held in the highest integrity. During a budget meeting with aldermen Monday, police acknowledged that despite being caught on a city POD camera, the shooting was between what are called mutual combatants. and that it's hard to discern who fired first and who might have been acting in self-defense, but they agree with the mayor, who says the charges of some sort should have been filed against all involved. At her press conference Tuesday, Fox called for a meeting between herself, the mayor, and police officials, whom she accused of mishandling high-profile investigations in recent weeks and then leaking information that would make her office look bad. Last week, Cook County prosecutors came under fire for making a similar argument after a teenager was stabbed to death during a fight in Schaumburg. The family of the victim, 18-year-old Manuel Portiz Jr., later told WGN that prosecutors specifically said they weren't charging the 17-year-old suspect with murder because the fatal fight amounted to mutual combat.
Really?
What?
Really?
So this got me fired up. I went down the rabbit hole here. I went to the Chicago Tribune. I could come up with 50 of these. Get this one.
In fact, we were sent the video that you were describing on social media, and I was watching it as you were talking about this. It's clear as day that this kid just openly shot and fired at this kid. His body's in the street, and it was right in front of a squad car.
Yep.
Wow.
John, do you have the names of the gangs?
I do. Let me see. Around 10:30 a.m. Friday, which is weird enough, don't you think?
Sure.
10:30 in the morning
Right
to
in the broad
have a little,
daylight.
a little gang gunfight.
Yeah.
Members of the Body Snatchers faction of the Four Corner Hustlers. So the Four Corner Hustlers have different divisions.
They have
apparently.
subsets. They have subsets.
Yeah. The Body Snatchers here drove down the 1200 block of North Mason Avenue in 2 Dodge Chargers. So basically, like tanks rolling down the street, began shooting into a home using handguns that were modified into automatic weapons. Members of the rival Jack Boys faction then fired back from inside the home.
Jack Boys.
We're not prosecuting anybody.
By the way,
No,
Kenny, I
nobody.
just retweeted it from my personal account. I'll also retweet it from the GL account, so people can see exactly what's going on.
Well, get this. This is the Chicago Tribune, September 4 of this year, just about, a month ago. Chicago police and Cook County prosecutors were locked in a tense dispute last week over whether to bring murder charges in the shooting that killed 7-year-old Serenity Broughton and wounded her 6-year-old sister, the Chicago Tribune has learned. Prosecutors rejected felony charges against one suspect who was in custody, saying the evidence against him had significant weaknesses, sources said. For one thing, a key witness, a relative of the girls who police believe had been involved in a dispute with at least one suspect, was not cooperating with authorities. In addition, the suspect did not confess to police, sources said, and prosecutors believe there was not sufficient physical evidence or video evidence tying him directly to the shooting. Police, on the other hand, say their case is solid. The police at first took the extraordinary step of overriding the prosecutor's decision, intending to take the case to court without the prosecutor's blessing, but prosecutors indicated they would dismiss the case. By Saturday morning, the standoff had reached an uneasy resolution. Police backed away from their attempt to outflank prosecutors on the murder charge, in part because top brass wanted to avoid a public fight with Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox's office. Instead, the suspect was to be kept in custody on a minor parole violation. The Tribune is not naming the suspect because he has not been charged in the shooting. The man did not appear in court Saturday. A representative of the Illinois Department of Corrections, which handles parole violations, could not be reached for comment. A spokesperson for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office said there was agreement Saturday on the handling of the case. After a thorough review of the information presented to us by police, we concluded that the evidence was insufficient to meet our burden of proof to file murder charges at this time, and the police agreed with that decision, said Tandra Simonton of Fox's office. The Chicago Police Department declined to comment. The case was the latest internal political fight between Chicago police and the state's attorney's office, which have pointed fingers at each other amid the city's seemingly intractable gun violence. Apart from the high-level political disputes, the decision on whether to bring felony charges can be a point of friction between rank-and-file cops and prosecutors, who in other parts of the system generally must work hand in hand. Typically, to bring a felony case, the police bring their investigation work to the Cook County State's Attorney's Felony Review Unit, where prosecutors examine the potential evidence and determine whether to bring charges, reject charges, or mark the case as a continuing investigation. Serenity and her 6-year-old sister Aubrey were in a parked car near their maternal grandmother's home in the 6200 block of West Grand Avenue in the Belmont-Cragen community, where they were shot August 15th. There was chaos and confusion when the shots were fired, the girl's paternal grandmother told the Tribune, but in the back seat of their parents' car, the sisters clung to one another.
My God.
They were hugging, said Regina Broughton, who is not the allegedly uncooperative relative. When they separated and pulled apart, there was blood on both of them. Serenity had been shot in the chest, a bullet clipping her heart. A bullet also hit Aubrey in the chest, but she survived. Aubrey, the bullet ruptured her lung and she had to be intubated, Regina Broughton said the day after the shooting. Serenity's injury was fatal. She didn't have a chance.
Oh, man.
On Saturday, Broughton said she was still hoping and praying that there's a resolution to the case, noting how police got so close to solving it. I hope someone comes forward. This is unbelievable. This is happening the closer you get to the country's tallest buildings. The prosecutors are not prosecuting.
But if you were a prosecutor, how can you hear that story or read the details of that story and feel comfortable with your decision making? What is wrong with the way that your mind is wired to make you think that your decision was fine? That you don't want to bring thugs like this to justice? Where do you go wrong in that regard?
Well, Terry provides this. He just saw this online and had to share it. Breaking news out of Chicago. 2 social workers were dispatched to the shooting call shortly after the gun was fired. Both social workers immediately responded to the scene in their Toyota Prius. A spokesperson for the social workers said that the shooting could have been prevented if the shooter did not have a student loan payment due each month. Apparently, the shooting suspect was upset that he had to pay monthly rent payments on the first of the month, and he had been suffering PTSD for almost a year after going to a Starbucks and being told they did not have any latte macchiato available that day. The FBI warns that the suspect may be returning to his home. However, they were unsure of how many stops it would take to plug in his electric car for more power. Well, obviously, Terry made this up, but you ain't far from that.
That's what's
You ain't far from that at all. You ain't far from that at all. Welcome to the future of socialism in this country. I don't get it. I really don't. I really don't.
Well, there's something afoot here. You know, you had mentioned that you had been in communication with someone that's a prosecutor. Is that accurate?
No, I've been in communication with some attorneys.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But you said that we got to get to the bottom. There's a movement here that apparently we have no understanding what's going on.
Yeah, I just what's going on behind the scenes to cause this? Is it jails are full? What is it? Is there dirty money changing hands? What?
Well, my thought, like a bad TV show, immediately went to Kim Fox being somehow affiliated with gang members, which,
Right.
which you know, is a TV thing. But something. You're right. It
As in
seems like
she's
something
getting
has to be
Is in like she's getting paid off, John? Is that what you're?
paid off or knows someone, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but
I mean-
that's just a
But
speculation.
prosecutors have reduced their prosecutions in Seattle and Portland, too.
Yeah, that's true.
In Ramsey County.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
It's the deconstruction of the law. But I didn't think it would get to murder cases. I mean, it's one thing to have a large argument about missing license tabs.
Joe.
It's another thing to have murderers shooting each other on film and a prosecutor saying, I just don't think that's sufficient evidence.
At 10 in the morning. And when you watch the video that I just posted, when you see that, you see this kid take out another kid's life, and then they dump the body out of one of those Dodge Chargers. I mean, this is complete madness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It encompasses many of the things we've been talking about as they pertain to the mystery. There is a belief, unfortunately, I think it's becoming increasingly widespread. There is a belief that these are crimes only because there's a law in the books, and the law was written unfairly because it did not take into account people of color. This mutual combatant thing is a new one to me. Is that going to be the new standard now? Well, we're not going to prosecute gang warfare because we don't know who fired first. They're mutual combatants.
Is this the left doing one thing or saying one thing and doing the other? Here's where my train of thought is. What we've been talking about for a few years is expecting less from black students, from black people, right?
Yes.
What's your phrase for that?
Making black children less than, particularly in the schools.
Okay, since these are black on black crimes, since most of these non-prosecuted crimes are on black people, since all of the violence, not all of it, but most of the violence we're seeing in Minneapolis is on the north side, are they just letting this happen just to keep the black people where they are?
Boy, isn't that a dreadful thought? Isn't that a dreadful thought? Where is their compassion?
Well, I don't get it because they act and they preach and they say they're doing everything they can for, air quotes, the black community, but yet everything they do is the opposite. It doesn't benefit them at all, and it hurts them.
Yeah. Well, you'll recall, I believe it was as recently as last week, that Philippe Cunningham rejected the idea that the National Guard should become involved. What he wanted was send me more resources.
Well, Philippe is black, is he not?
Yes.
So
Kenny Kimberly Fox is also black, the prosecutor in Chicago.
Yeah. Lori Lightfoot, the mayor, is black.
okay, so that blows up my theory then, right?
Not
so
necessarily.
then I don't have a theory then. It just seems like they say they're big upping them and they're doing everything to help them, but they're hurting them. And are they doing it on purpose, I guess is my question.
I'm not prepared to make that charge.
Well, then how do they not see that they're harming them in every way? I mean, you've already got to struggle just to get out of the ghetto. I'm thinking about, hold on, let me get his name here. The kid that wrote the two editorials, Marcus Hunter II.
Yep.
just for this kid, a brilliant kid, he is struggling to get out of the north side of the ghetto.
He will. He will.
He will, but it's a real struggle. And he's a good guy, and he's doing good. So what about the kids that are already in a gang, or that they've seen the big money that comes with selling crack or whatever they're doing, stealing cars, I don't know, whatever. How are you going to get to them?
You're not.
No.
You're not.
No, everything that the Democrats say they're doing keeps them, for lack of a better word, down. It's the man keeping them down.
I saw a thread, and I was trying to find it over the weekend, of a gentleman that I follow that posted photos, and I think it was over 100 different photos, and it was a timeline. So from January 1st to where we're at today, and it was all kids under the age of 10 who had been murdered in Crossfire. A couple of them that were here in the state of Minnesota, but it was a timeline, so of January, whatever. And I thought, again, how can you as a prosecutor see that and see innocent lives of kids under the age of 10 being taken because you could have possibly prevented some of this by keeping these animals behind bars?
And Chris, we say it about the witnesses. How many kids do we have dead in Minneapolis? How come no witnesses have come forth?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, we had the story last week. John had it in his news where people refused to testify. People refused to speak. And the case was dropped. And just like that.
There still is, I believe, a couple $100,000 on the table for the 3 children who were shot in May. And no one's talking. And here you have a case where the little 7-year-old girl dies in Chicago, and apparently she has a relative that's somehow involved with somebody who was involved, and she won't talk. So part of the problem, too, is the overriding problem of life having lost its meaning.
That is a big part of it.
There you go, right there.
I mean, those gangsters who are shooting and killing innocent people in Crossfire, they have no moral or ethical remorse. There's no ground floor on which they stand in morality.
Rolling gunfights, car to car.
Yeah.
Bullets going everywhere.